All right, and we're back. Boy, it's been an incredibly eventful week. That's not really necessarily true. It's actually been a pretty boring week.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, I suppose.
Well, I was looking through my notes here, and, last week we left off with the Nike boycott, the Kavanaugh hearings, and the Serena Williams freakout. And looking at my notes today, we have the hurricane, we have the Kavanaugh hearings, and we have fallout from the Serena Williams freakout. But I guess there's a couple of other things that have happened since then. You heard about the Article 13 out of the European Union? They want to ban memes.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
They want to ban memes. That's going to be a good time. The Manafort's plea deal has come out. Apparently, Matt Drudge, who I don't know what the deal is with Matt Drudge. If I didn't know any better, I would swear that Matt Drudge hates Donald Trump with a passion. Because I went on his page today, right before I came here, the Drudge Report. And right below all the stuff on the top about the hurricane were all of these individualized links to mainstream media outlet sources talking about how Manafort has flipped. Manafort is gunning after Trump. This is the end of Trump. We finally got Trump this time. And it turns out that the plea deal involved the plea deal involvement had nothing to do with the supposed Russian collusion involved in the election, which we all know is totally based on lies.
It's another nothing burger.
Right, it's a big old nothing burger, absolutely. Delicious nothing burger, fun for the whole family. And so now we've got the hurricane. So the hurricane, what was it, like a Category 4 or something? It was supposed to be a big deal when it was out at sea, right? Right before it makes landfall, they degrade it to like a level 2 due to the eyes wall coming down. Do you understand how this works?
Yeah.
I did not understand it. So the eye of the hurricane is really powerful around it, right? Not the eye of itself there's nothing going on, but in the area around it, you got all this turbulence. And apparently, if the wall, quote unquote, of the eye comes down, it means that the winds are not blowing as hard as they used to. And apparently, they downgraded it. And as soon as they did, all of a sudden, the God Emperor Trump, who apparently was the one who created this hurricane, was no longer the headlines. No longer the king of the headlines anymore, which is funny because, Trump likes being in the headlines all the time, as far as I understand it. Trump enjoys it, as far as I know. I mean, he has 40-plus years of being in the media spotlight, doesn't he? Something like that. He's got decades of being involved in the media. He knows what he's doing. And so, are you familiar with all this?
Well, it's been said that Trump is the laser pointer and the media is the cat.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect way of putting it. So no matter what he does or what he says, they will find a way to pin it on him, even if he didn't do anything. I've seen article after article of how Trump is complicit in the hurricane because of global warming, how Trump is responsible for the hurricane for pulling us out of the climate accord, and how Trump is responsible for the hurricane for denying climate change. So apparently, Trump can control the weather now. I'm very impressed with the God Emperor of the United States, the very stable genius God Emperor of the United States.
That's pretty good stuff.
I'm having a great time, frankly.
Other presidents just haven't been able to pull that off.
This is exactly why we've had such a lovely summer here in San Diego. We've had a very moderate August and September, and it's because, being the conservative hub of California, Donald has blessed us with good weather.
Are you sure it's not the God Emperor of Sacramento?
Well, you see, here's the funny thing about Jerry Brown. I don't speak Chinese, so I can't speak too much about him. Same thing goes for Dianne Feinstein. But I do know that Feinstein has should have gotten in trouble for having hired a spy for over a decade. There's some conjecture, matter of fact.
Yeah, of course, she's the head of the Intelligence Committee, but she had no idea that there was spies working for her?
There's some conjecture that between Hillary and Feinstein, the Chinese have been able to rebuild some of our high-test flying machines. What are those things, like F-1 something something? I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Well, the F-18 is one of the things that they some people say they stole our technology,
yeah.
And other people say that the Clintons gave it to them,
yes.
sold it to them.
And some people, and that's what I mean, there's conjecture that between the Clintons, particularly Hillary and her server, which some people claim, I think it was Judicial Report, came out and said that the Chinese had hacked Hillary's private server and had bugged it in such a way that Hillary's email server sent to the Chinese, or sent to the Chinese authorities, I should say. It's not like every Chinese person received the email, but had hacked her server in such a way that Chinese authorities received real-time emails to and from the Hillary Clinton server. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there should be people should be in jail. If not in jail, they should be questioned. There should be hearings right now to pull people into military tribunals and things like that to question them, like what were you doing with this information? What do you have to say about this? This goes back to the 20 or so CIA people who were killed or arrested in China during the time that Hillary's emails were being hacked by China, which is really telling about the level of secrecy involved in her server. And at the same time goes to show
lack of secrecy.
Goes to show the lack of ability for the FBI to really look into a political ally and to actually prosecute them if they've done something wrong. You've been around a lot longer than I have, John, and you know a lot more crooked things that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Clintons themselves have done than I do. And what astonishes me is how they seem to continually get away with it. But as I get older, I find that the farther left you lean, the harder you become to prosecute for some reason.
Well, if you watch some of these gangster movies, you could see a strategy laid out in the movies, and this is what they do, what the mob guys do, is they make the enforcement people their partners. Okay? In other words, they're on the take. Okay? So they allow these guys to, like in the movie Goodfellas, you see the
they pay off the cops or something in that movie? The mayor, basically?
Yeah, they pay all these guys off. They're all on the take. Yeah. And so there's a wink and a nod, and that stuff happens. Well, of course, and I've known for, about 2 years now that Robert Mueller was the guy. He was the bag man. He's the guy that delivered the original uranium-1 to the Russians. That hasn't hit mainstream yet. I mean, the uranium-1 thing is a huge, gigantic scandal. There was a whole bunch of people in on that. I just don't know. That hasn't gone anywhere. But we know the Justice Department gave Hillary a free pass. They exonerated her before they even questioned her.
Yeah.
And then they go after Donald Trump. And to me, it's a little bit interesting why they hate Donald Trump so much. I think that's curious. If he's so clean, and of course the story's coming out now that that's what the problem was with the FBI and these guys who were spying on him. This is the Obama administration were spying on him, and they didn't, they knew that they didn't have anything on him, so that's why they had to invent this Russian collusion thing. And of course, now, if anybody's watching this story, anybody who is watching this story knows that this was completely fabricated. They invented the whole story. Hillary came out with it before the FBI did, so she was in on it too. We know that. So she's in on the FBI. Anyway, so the FBI, all these prestigious law enforcement people on the 7th floor, who are all fired now, by the way, all those people are gone just about, except for Rosenstein. Anyway, they created the story, then they would leak the story to the mainstream media, and then the media would run the story, and then they would go back and get another FISA warrant citing the stories from the media as their reason to continue spying on Trump, because every 90 days they have to renew the FISA warrant.
So
they did this 4 times.
This is how the Mockingbird media has been able to control the minds of the American people.
Right. They did that to influence people's thinking about
this was
Trump.
originally set up in the 60s, Operation Mockingbird, and it was originally set up to place FBI agents essentially into the high levels and the high echelons of news media. But over time, it's been found to be more efficient to just have those FBI agents leak information to media heads who will then run a story on it that then gives the FBI justification to investigate somebody or to otherwise violate their Fourth Amendment rights, which is what we saw with the Trump campaign.
Exactly. And this really is the essence of what is called the self-licking ice cream cone. Okay?
That sounds like a terrible ice cream cone.
Well, I wouldn't want to eat that ice cream cone.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
It's but that's what it is.
One of those Monsanto cones.
And so these people created the story, and then they perpetrate the story. They completely it was a complete fraud on the FISA courts. We'll see how that turns out, too. But all these other guys, who have been completely maligned by the mainstream media because of this false story. And some of them have pled guilty, to lesser charges, pled guilty to, like, lying.
Yeah.
Which is a bogus thing, because they interview one guy and
right?
he says this, and they interview somebody else about the same situation and he says something else. And so then they get to decide, the FBI gets to decide who was lying. Look, we caught you in a lie. Well, I wasn't lying.
Well, the FBI can lie to you all they want.
Yeah, that's
the
not
FBI
really right
they
either,
can
but
lie
that's
to
what
you
they
day
do.
in and day out. They can walk right up to you, say, "Hey, we've got all the evidence to prove that you're guilty of whatever." So you might
just
as well
tell me
come
off
clean.
the record, okay? And it's not.
Yeah,
And
there's no
yes.
such thing as off the record when you're talking to anybody that kind of an authority. There's no such thing. In the same way that you can't quit the FBI or the CIA, like, once you're in, you're in. You know what I mean? It's like being a KGB agent. Once you're in, you're in. This is why that guy freaked out. Piers. Oh my gosh, what was the guy's name? I don't remember. He freaked out against the.
I saw
Piers,
that clip. Completely freaked out.
Freaked out. And
when he was being accused of being on the take because he was a former CIA guy.
Absolutely.
I have not taken any money at all, and he just
And that's why they're freaking out, because they understand that they're still in it. Oh yeah, I'm a former guy. Oh yeah, I'm not involved anymore. But when you still have your security clearance, how on earth can you say that you're not part of it anymore? This would be like saying, "Oh yeah, I quit that job, but you know what?
I still have the keys to the
cash drawer. I still have the keys. I still show up. I still see what's going on. I watch the videotapes. I still act like I'm there, but they don't pay me. Sure, I can tell other people about what goes on there, and they'll pay me big bucks to tell them what goes on. But it's not like I work there.
I'm paid by CNN.
Exactly. See, that's how it works.
Sure. So CNN gets the money, and they just give him a nice paycheck because he's got the security clearance. A security clearance equals money. A lot of these guys, by the way, legitimately can go to work for Teledyne Ryan or some aerospace company and work on a highly classified vehicle. Space vehicle or airplane.
But they'd rather sell information to the media. It's cheaper and easier.
Well, if that's where the money is, yeah.
Well, I see it in the sense that it may not necessarily be that's where the money is, but that's where the agenda is.
A lot of it is agenda-driven.
When I look at what's going on with these big corporations, they're hemorrhaging money. A lot of these corporations just losing money hand over fist, but somehow they're not going bankrupt. They're not. Some of them are firing people, but some of them aren't firing people.
Well, they don't seem to mind.
They don't mind losing money, which says to me
I don't think it affects their lifestyle one iota.
Yeah, well, which says to me there's either foreign money coming in to pat them for the money they lose, or they have so much money that now they're willing to lose it until they can push through their agenda. It kind of reminds me of back in the day when a lot of people were coming to California. I don't think I was there, but I've read about this. When a lot of people were migrating to California during the gold rush, a lot of local businesses sprang up because there were a lot of people moving in and they had a lot of goods and services that needed to be offered. A lot of those places came and went, but a lot of the places that ended up going bankrupt went bankrupt because certain rich people at the time who wanted competition to disappear would open up a similar business and sell things at a loss for long enough for the other business to go out of business. And then
they get their money back.
They jack up the price and make all their money back. Kind of reminds me of that.
Rockefellers.
Yes, thank you. The Rockefellers. I was going to say the Rothschilds. I was like, no. That's not the right era. That's way before. Yes, it was the Rockefellers who did that. They would sell things at a loss for years and years and years until the competition was out of business. Then they'd sweep on in. This is why trusts and trust laws were eventually developed.
And this is the sort of thing that I think we're looking at with Google and Twitter and these guys.
I believe it was Senator McCarthy, or not Senator. Who's the guy? Congressman McCarthy, is it? He just came out today and said we need Google hearings. Google has got to show up and justify what we've saw. You heard about those Google tapes, right? Those Google tapes that got released that Breitbart put out there, which is funny. A lot of people give Breitbart a hard time. I do too. I like giving Breitbart a hard time because they've been around for a long time.
They confess they were working really, really hard to get Hillary elected, and you could hear these guys on mainstream news, and I don't know if it was CNN or PMSNBC
that woman
or whoever
says,
it was.
We've done everything we can to get Hillary elected, she says.
Yeah.
And
so they once in a while will the truth will slip out of their mouths.
Well, this reminds me of a long time ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before the advent of television and the newspaper and things like that. Long time ago, there used to be basically who is the television now. They used to be the priest class, basically. You had
the town criers.
Yeah, the peasants wouldn't really know anything. But the well-read people who were allowed to preach to the peasants, they were more knowledgeable. And if you wanted to preach to the peasants, you had to get permission from the crown. If you want to have a radio station, for example, you need permission from the crown. We call it the FCC.
Right.
So you get an FCC license, they allow you to broadcast. But there's all sorts of rules and regulations. You can't swear, you can't have nudity, you can't do this, you can't do that. There's all sorts of restrictions on that. Because, of course, you're getting permission. It used to be back in the day that if you were the pastor or the preacher or the town crier and you were the hear ye guy, you needed permission from the king. You could preach what you wanted. Sure, okay, yeah, you can preach your God's forgiving and loving, but if you want to preach in my kingdom, you got to preach that your God thinks that it's okay that I'm the king. And okay, that's fine, just so long as I get to collect those nice remittances, every couple of months. You send somebody by, pay me a little bit of money, I'll look the other way when you're preaching about your God. But don't you ever tell those people that your God is higher than me. You got to let everyone know that it's okay that I control these people.
The strategy is the same now.
Thank you. It's exactly the same. So the priest class, the preacher class, the crier class has just become the media. It works the same way. They have the crown that they must appeal to. They have to toe the line of the crown, and if they don't, they'll be fined, they'll be feed, they'll be sued, they'll be jailed, they'll be left bankrupt and broke, and their children homeless. A lot on the line.
And they're doing the same thing now. Of course, they banned Alex Jones, and they banned a Reddit board and subreddit board called The Great Awakening, which had a whole bunch of these Q posts on there from this QAnon individual or individuals, whoever he was, they are. But and all it was, there's a whole bunch of people would post on there, and some of them had crazy ideas, and I think it's okay to have crazy ideas, but the point is they didn't like those ideas. Now, a few weeks ago, the media came out, mainstream media came out, blasting this QAnon phenomenon, and they were saying how it's just not very popular, and they have crazy ideas like JFK Jr. is still alive, and that the world is run by elite pedophiles, and the deep state and all that sort of stuff. That it's just conspiracy theories and all that sort of thing, and they blasted it. And then it was taken down off of the... now, it's still on 8chan. And this Q person, all he was doing, he would just ask questions. Like, who is Lisa Barsomian? And people would go do research, and they'd come back and they'd say, hey, wow, that's Rod Rosenstein's wife. And who is she? Who does she work for? Okay, well, they'd go do some research and come back and say, hey, she works for the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. She's the enforcement officer. So if she wants to bust anybody that's doing Security Exchange Commissions or ignore somebody that's doing Security Exchange Commissions illegally, anyway, if she wanted somebody busted, she refers them to the FBI. Well, who's the FBI guy? Well, that's Rod Rosenstein. And so you find out that there's a lot of nepotism that goes on with these agencies. And a lot of them, they don't have, their husband and wives have different last names, so they're a little bit veiled. Bruce and Sally Orr.
I believe that is done intentionally in order to protect people from prosecution.
Yeah, of course it is.
You can't be forced to testify against your husband or wife.
Right.
It's the same reason the Clintons are married. The Clintons aren't married because they love each other and they share a similar deep bond and things like that. The Clintons are married because it's a relationship of expedience, for political expedience at that.
Of course, yeah.
They understand that they're both crooked individuals, and if they are married to each other, they can give off this air of we're great, wonderful Americans. Look, we had a daughter supposedly with each other, but we're not going to prove that. But we had a daughter over here.
Don't ask me for
which
DNA.
Goes to prove that we
stay away from Webb Hubble. He's not going to give you a DNA either.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect, right? Just no one asks any questions, and that way they can go about committing crimes with each other and using each other to commit crimes. And so long as they have people like Rod Rosenstein and Barack Obama on their side, they'll never get prosecuted. And this is what I mentioned earlier. The farther left you lean, the harder you seem to be to prosecute in this country. The farther right you lean, the easier it is to prosecute you. Look at the Kavanaugh hearings, for example. He's a right-leaning guy. He hasn't done anything wrong. They can't find anything wrong that this guy has ever done. They got Dianne Swinstein up there in the Senate swinging a flag or a letter around saying, "I've got the proof. I've got the proof right here that somebody a long time ago said that Brett Kavanaugh, when he was 17, might have said a rude joke one time, maybe, but I'm not going to show it to you."
Why do I think that Gloria Allred's involved with that?
You know, I think that
her name is missing so far in this.
I think it just goes to show that.
But they're desperate.
This is exactly why all of those doomsday preppers have been right for decades, and I feel stupid for having made fun of them when I was in high school because I think they might have been onto something, because this worries me.
Well, I think the doomsday is coming, but I'm not sure it's who they think it is.
Well, here's the funny thing, and I do find this very funny, is the left. The extreme left is pushing for a civil war. They are absolutely pushing for a civil war. I don't necessarily think...
The extreme left. It's sort of like the overlords of the left.
Yes. That's what they're pushing for. They are they are inculcating in the most indoctrinated cult members that they have a desire for violence against those whom do not conform to the philosophy of the extreme left. So if you believe that there's, a difference between men and women, and if you think that women are underrepresented in jobs because they don't want those jobs, you will eventually have to be put to death. I was, in fact, just reading the other day, my friend put this up on his Facebook page, where a transgender community blog put out an article explaining how gulags were actually peaceful re-education facilities.
Oh, of course they were.
I kid you not. This was a legitimate blog post. This person's like, look, it was a lie. It's not true. These were not work camps. People were not sent here to die. People were sent here to overcome their greedy capitalistic mentalities so that they could live in perfect harmony in their socialist utopias.
And I'm sure they were treated wonderfully.
Well, according to this transgender person, they were treated wonderfully if they complied. But they were violent and abusive, and so they had to be beaten back, in a sense. These poor innocent guards, they're just there to make sure that you love socialism, and then you get violent and they got to hit you. That's just the way that it is. This is how it was explained to me by a leftist lunatic. But understand, like I said, these people want you dead, poor, broke, destitute, and your children homeless. That is the goal of the left. They don't even want you to have kids because your kids might vote like Americans. They want other people's children to show up in this country and for them to vote like their home country would have them vote.
The philosophy of the left has been socialism, democratic socialism, and it's been a soft, sort of long, drawn-out process. But after Trump got in office, all that got speeded up to just hardcore communism.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the things I've noticed is that people who normal Democrats, normal left-of-center Democrats are losing their primary runs to hardcore leftist socialist types like Alexandria Cortez or whatever her name is.
Right.
That to me just demonstrates the fervor for these people's war. They really want a war because I don't think they understand. You're not going to get socialism in America until you start shooting people. That's, in fact, no socialism is going to happen in this country until you start shooting people. Capitalism didn't happen in this country until we started shooting people either, by the way. Just so all my friends over on the other side of the pond understand, the reason why the European Union's taking your memes away, because you guys never fought for your freedoms. You guys fought for different leaders. I've pointed this out before, especially in French history. French history is rife with, okay, we're going to take down this king and we're going to put in another one. That didn't work. We're going to take down this king and we're going to put in another one. That didn't work. All right, well, we're going to kill Marie Antoinette. We're going to put in another leader every single time. So Europe has done over and over again. We're going to take down this leader and we're going to put in another one. They've never fought for true freedom in Europe, and that's why they don't have a First Amendment. That's why it's never written down that they have a right to defend themselves. This is why in England, people who fight back while they're getting mugged, robbed, and raped get prosecuted and often punished. You don't have a right to self-defense in those kinds of places. It's because you never fought for it. So if you want something, you're going to have to fight for it. And this is what I tell my communist friends. And, if you want communism in this country, you're going to have to start killing capitalists.
What is the statement that blood of tyrants and patriots must be spilled every so often?
Thomas Jefferson said that the manure of the tree of freedom is the blood of patriots and tyrants. How about that? And he might be right. You know, Thomas Jefferson also said that it is the natural cause of government to gain control and for freedom to yield. And this is true. We've seen this time and time again. Where there is freedom, the government will restrict it. And it never, ever gives those freedoms back. Look at how many gun laws have been passed in America.
It's not really just the government. It is people in power, okay? And right now we're seeing it in corporate power, all right? We have seen it with government. There's no question about that. But when we've got people like, Facebook and Twitter and Google platforms will completely ban somebody who's putting out their version of the news, Alex Jones, for instance, and now the QAnon movement.
Well, look, remember when Facebook banned Milo?
Yeah.
A lot of people forget about Twitter. Twitter banned Milo a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the reasons that Milo has had a hard time getting back into the limelight of society. It's not that he's not as flagrantly homosexual as he used to be. It's not that he's not out there trying to be a provocateur of the right. It's that he can't get a leg up because he's got no social media platforms anymore. He's on Gab. He's on Minds.
And who's that guy that has he started the walk-away movement? His name's Brandon Strzok or something like that.
No idea.
Anyway, he started the walk-away movement, hashtag walk-away, just because he was one of those Democrats that a light went on in his head. Somebody sent him a video showing that they were changing videos to make Trump look like a racist and making fun of a handicapped journalist, which was completely untrue. He wasn't doing that at all. And so when he saw these sort of things, that's when he started doing his own research instead of just listening to the leftist news. And he started the hashtag walkaway movement, gaining a lot of ground. Now, he still is, I guess, going to have a whole bunch of his people in Washington, D.C. for the walkaway movement. But
I heard about this. They banned his page.
Yep.
Facebook banned his page.
They took his page.
He had a
down.
page to get people together to be like, hey, look, guys, we're spreading the word. We're walking away from the Democratic Party. And Google was so terrified they took his page down. And then that video was leaked just a couple days later, which showed that they were terrified that they had lost the election and that they were going to use AI in order to convince low information voters how to vote. I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, it's an open and shut case. It's election meddling. These people are colluding with foreign agencies. Google, which is not Facebook, Google, we know, colludes with China in order to build a safety search over there. Facebook colludes with China in order to build, like, a safety, fresh Facebook and everything over in China. Why are American firms buddying up with communist nations in order to build censored and unconstitutional and un-American internets?
Tyler, 2 years ago, before the election, you came over to my office and you showed me, you typed in something like Hillary Clinton is to Google, and then it starts populating the page. Hillary Clinton is, a wonderful person, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And then we went over to Bing or Yahoo or something else. You did this on my computer. You remember this?
Mm.
And we went to Yahoo, I think it was, and typed in the same sort of thing, completely populated a different narrative, which was Hillary Clinton is a crook, Hillary Clinton is evil, Hillary Clinton
is a liar.
Yeah, all these sort of things.
Yeah.
And so you could see that they had a different, and this is 2 years ago, they had a different algorithm than Google did.
Well, Tim Pool is an individual journalist. He's a left-leaning guy, and he does not like the left right now because he views them as like they've totally gone overboard, right? He's a left-leaning guy in like social mentality. He doesn't think the government should be regulating your personal life. Doesn't think the government should be regulating who you sleep with, kind of drugs that you do.
These are conservative values.
I understand, but you need to remember that here in America, we are as far as I'm concerned, we are the most poorly educated first world country in the world. I don't think you're going to find another population of people who are as opulently wealthy and as stupid as Americans are. Not to say there aren't a lot of poor Americans, and it's not to say there aren't a lot of smart Americans. But when you look overall at how dumb Americans are, we don't have a triple-digit IQ average anymore. The amount of third-world immigration that's been brought into this country has dropped the average IQ to below 100.
Let's go back to this analogy that you had earlier about the town crier. He was only going to sing the songs that the king approved, and he got the job. And what that tells you is, first of all, those people out there are more powerful than they know, because they're just going to The king is only going to allow the town crier to disseminate the information that the king approves of. Okay? And that's what's going on now. People have been disseminating information that the corporate godheads like Google and all these guys, they don't like the narrative. And so they let it go for a long time until it affected their election. And now they're in trouble.
Yes.
And so they're looking to get really ugly about it.
I kind of see it like this, right?
They're doing.
See, the government is restricted by the Constitution in America, and the government can't censor. But you know what the government would really like is if a private organization could do the censoring for it. And you know what's interesting is that Facebook and Twitter, is that our tax dollars actually go to these places. Not only in the form of huge subsidies in order to keep them open and to keep their labor prices low so they can continue to import people from third world countries to depress American wages. But what's really fascinating about this is that normal, like FEMA's on Twitter. If you have a banned Twitter account, how are you going to contact them? How are they going to contact you? Your tax dollars are going to government organizations that then use your tax dollars to tweet things out. Government organizations now hire people who are tech savvy in order to do their social media outreach. So when these places ban you, understand, these aren't just private corporations anymore. These are essentially, and I know this sounds bad, but these are essentially public utilities. Twitter is basically a public utility at this point. When our government is using it as a public utility, when our government is using our tax dollars to use Twitter as a way to reach you in the form of emergency funds or emergency situations and things like that, this is no longer a situation of, oh, it's a private company, it can do what it wants. I can understand it used to be a private company. It has grown to a public utility.
Exactly. And if that public utility, like PayPal or how about your own bank, decides that they don't like your narrative, they don't like the way you think, you're just the wrong party or something like that, they can stop you from using the bank.
How about that? That happened to somebody. I remember that.
Does that sound like Revelation 13 or what?
Yeah, how about that, right?
Is it Revelation 13?
Where you have the mark of the beast, and
if you don't have the right political party, you can't buy or sell.
The mark of the beast is actually a hashtag, by the way. Hashtag mark of the beast.
I'm not surprised.
Neither am I. So what I find most amazing about all of this is how many leftists, whom for years have screamed corporations need to be regulated. They have said for years corporations should not be able to discriminate. We need things like affirmative action. We need things like all this hocus pocus, phony baloney, voodoo economics. We need it all because we can't trust private corporations because private corporations are evil. Well, now all of a sudden they're singing a different tune. Now all of a sudden that these private leftist corporations are actually doing something that is considered evil, like banning people's speech once you've become a public utility. Now all of a sudden these leftists are like, well, hold on. I think you guys have been right all along. You guys have been right all along. I forsake all of that about government regulation. I've been wrong the whole time. You can't regulate a private corporation. It can do what it wants. Ha 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 ha.
As long as they're banning the people I don't like.
As long as they're banning the people I don't like. Gosh, who was it? I think it was Media Matters. Media Matters is like Share Blue, a very far left leaning propagandist organization. They got one of their
Soros
articles taken down by by Facebook or something because the Daily Wire or the Free Banana Republic Beacon, I don't remember, but like a conservative outlet did a fact-checking background check on this Media Matters article, found it was totally bogus and totally a lie, totally a propaganda piece, sent the information to Facebook, and Facebook complied and said, you're right. We'll have to take that down. And they took this article down by Media Matters, and they had a moment. They freaked out and said, this is unbelievable. It is incomprehensible that Facebook has the audacity to want to censor people. Pay no attention to the article 3 weeks ago when Alex Jones got banned and we hailed it as a magnificent success. Pay no attention to that because now we're being censored, and that's wrong. And this is what I've come to realize. The far left no longer believes in right, and they never have, but they have come out and basically admitted we don't believe in right and wrong. We only believe in in-group preference. If you're on our side, you are innocent. If you're on their side, you are guilty. It is as simple as that. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what your standards are. It doesn't matter how you apply them.
And that's how the FBI's been playing this whole Trump thing versus Hillary thing.
It's just in-group preference. But you know what's really astonishes me you see, is that the Democrats demonize the idea of in-group preference. This is why we have affirmative action laws. Affirmative action laws are the idea that if a company is ran by a bunch of white men, they might hire white men. We need to stop white men from hiring other white men, because then there's people out there who other people need to get hired. You hear California. It's just sitting on Jerry Brown's desk right now. He just needs to sign it. The Congress passed a bill saying that
Jerry Brown's Congress?
Yes, not ours. Not our Congress. I don't know who.
He is acting like El Presidente, yeah.
He's going to sign this bill that's going to force corporations in California that have boards, like CEO boards, to hire women. So if you have like 6 people on your board, at least half of them have to be women. You got 5 people on your board, at least 2 of them have got to be women. So this is what I suggest. Women, listen up. I've got a great idea. There's a job opening for you right now. You can be the executive of 12 or 13 companies. 20. But why not 100 companies? Here's all you need to put on your resume. I will do nothing. That's it. People are going to look and say, well, why would I want to hire if you're going to do nothing? Well, because I'm going to do nothing.
You
see?
have to hire me.
You have to hire me, but I'm not going to give you any bad ideas. I'm not even going to give you good ideas. I'm not even going to show up to the meeting on time. I'm going to show up. I'm going to put my coffee in the microwave. I'm going to heat it up, and then I'm going to leave. And all I want is $10,000 a year from you guys. You pay me $10,000 a year, and I will tell the government I'm there all the time. I'll tell the government I participate all the time. But I'll leave you guys to your business. You can run the company the way you want to run it. And all I want is $10,000. And ladies, all you got to do is do that to 5 or 6, 7, 8, 10 companies. You're making more money than your husband is. By virtue of doing nothing. It's a great idea. It's bulletproof. Why don't you go do it? Take advantage of the stupid laws. If corporations have to hire women, why don't you just show up and say, hey, look, you got to hire me. I'll do the job for cheap. I won't ask for anything. I don't even want any benefits.
Do you hire a man?
Well, this is what I was going to say.
Yeah, what if there's a whole board full of women?
Me, personally,
How do you have to hire?
I'm just going to say I identify as a woman. And then I'm going to sell them the same spiel. I identify as a woman. So what I'm going to do nothing on your board. I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to get in your way. I'm not going to come up with bad ideas. I'm not going to show up and ask you stupid questions. All I want you guys to do is just sign my check at the end of the month, because I'm based on salary, because that's how it works being a high hoity-toity CEO guy. If I do base it on salary, then you don't have to worry about minimum wage laws or anything like that. You're going to pay me a whole lot of nothing, right? And I'll do it 6 days a week, right? I'll do nothing 6 days a week. I'll show up 1 day a week. Just to, like, punch in my card, you know. You guys can say hi to me, like, I'm here, you know. Remember, I'm Mrs. Harris, by the way.
Sounds like you've thought this through a little bit.
It's a great idea. Someone out there is going to make a gajillion dollars in California whoring themselves out to corporations by doing nothing for them in the name of diversity.
I still want to know if there's a whole bunch of... If there's too many women on a board, do they have to hire men, or are they just left out?
You see, that's not what the law says. The law says there has to be women on the board. Nothing about men on the board. Got to be women. So if you have a company...
You see a lawsuit coming there.
No, I don't at all. Because, you see, if you, as a man, tried to sue the state, it's because you're sexist, you see. Because you, as a man, you're so strong and powerful, you don't need the state to help you at all, in any way, shape, or form.
But women are wimps.
So if the state just...
So
well, no, it's not that women are wimps. It's
this is where I'm going, like with the ACLU and this affirmative action stuff, where, like, if you're a person of color, you're not as smart as everybody else, so you need help from the government. That is really offensive to me, being a person of color.
Oh, I agree. And I've talked, and not personally, but I've heard people like Thomas Sowell talk about this. Thomas Sowell's, I think he's like 107 years old these days. But he's an old black man. And he talks about how affirmative action is really bad for the black communities. Because a hard-working black guy isn't going to feel like, well, I got this job because I'm a hard worker. At the same time, you're a hard-working black guy. You show up for a job with 5 or 6 other black guys. Well, one of you is going to get hired. But because the people hiring you are going to view you as affirmative action hires, you're probably not going to get as likely a chance of getting hired as somebody who was not under affirmative action laws.
Yeah, I know. It's very offensive. It's like, oh, sorry, you know.
And at the same time,
not because you're qualified or you're hardworking or anything like that, but on account of what color your mom and daddy was.
Yes, exactly. That's the funny thing, right? Is it's like the color of your skin is your parents' fault. It's got nothing to do with you. You had no say in it. So what people are really doing is they're judging the mistakes of your parents. This is really what they're doing when they're looking at you. You're the wrong color. Your parents made a bad decision in life. You know, honestly, it's really the problem. You have bad parents. So you're doubly offended. They're saying it's your problem and it's your parents' fault, too. It's like they're spitting on your...
I should get a check for that, too.
You're not getting paid for this, by the way, just in case you ever were under the wrong impression. Yes,
until we get a sponsor.
It is truly amazing to see the level of bigotry to come from the left, and this is the bigotry of low expectation. The idea that, and I've talked about this before, it's the white man's burden. The idea that white people are so great and wonderful that they have an obligation to the third world to lift them up out of poverty, which is to imply that they couldn't do it on their own, which is totally contradictory to the history that we've observed. India, for example, has been lifting itself up out of poverty. India has one of the biggest booms of a middle class that's ever been observed in the history of humanity. And the reason why is because they're competent and qualified individuals whom, when the government got off the back of the economy, allowed for capitalism and the spurring of the middle class. It's what we see. It's observable. It's demonstratable. I can see it. There's history right over there. You can read about it. But we're told here in America that the reason why third world countries are third world countries is because it's Whitey's fault. Man, you want to know why Bolivia is Bolivia? It's Whitey's fault. Man, you want to know why Argentina is Argentina? It's Whitey's fault. You want to know what the problem is with South Africa? It's all those white people. That's why they're stealing the land away from them, by the way, and giving it back to all of the people who are good friends of the Communist Party in South Africa. It's not that they're going to give the land to qualified farmers in South Africa. They're going to give it to people who are the best friends of the Communist Party.
By the way, last I heard, the mainstream media is saying that's just a conspiracy theory.
You know what's interesting is that they do say that, but at the same time, Theresa May says that she's not going to stop it so long as it's legal. So is it a conspiracy, or is it actually happening? Like, I don't know. I mean, as far as I know, it is happening.
They don't want us educated. That's the whole point of all this stuff, is they don't want... The same thing as the town crier, the story from the very beginning of the show. They don't want us educated, and that's why they're cutting people out of the education process. We don't want Alex Jones telling you what's going on in the world. We don't want QAnon spurring you on to do your own research. No, we don't want any of that stuff. We only want you to know what the God Kings of the Soy Boy Silicon Valley team allow you to know.
It reminds me of what George Carlin said many years ago. He said they don't want a population of people capable of critical thinking. They don't want a population of people capable of sitting around the dining room table and figuring out how they've been totally screwed out of their pension, their 401k, the end of overtime, the end of retirement. He says they don't want that. What they want is a population of people who are just dumb enough to turn all the knobs and press all the buttons and too stupid to ask any questions about what happened to my country and where did all my freedoms go. And it's just true. I've seen this. What they want is a population of people just smart enough to do all the jobs, press all the buttons, jump through all the hoops and get the degree, but not smart enough to question why it is the way it is. This was mentioned originally in A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
And John Rockefeller quoted it too, allegedly, that he does not want a country of thinkers. He wants a country of workers.
Absolutely. And when you look at the way that the school system is set up, and
He's a big supporter of John Dewey and the school system
one of these days we'll do a whole show on the school system, but the way that the school system is set up,
we did that last week,
is very reminiscent of how a factory is set up. You have a compartmentalization of certain fields. The sciences are over here, and English is over here, and you put math over here, and you put agriculture over here. You separate everything, right? Just like you would a factory. Tires are built here. Axles are built here. Windshields are built here.
Things are on a need-to-know basis.
And not only that, but things are on a conveyor belt system. Mm-hmm. You're basically in a conveyor belt system. They push the knob, and the bell goes, Bob. And everyone gets up on the conveyor belt and they walk to the next area. And then everything gets shut down, and then for the next hour or so, you are put through the flesh grinder from 1979's Pink Floyd to the wall. And then when you're done there, the bell goes off, just like any other mechanized, industrialized system, and the conveyor belt starts up, and you make your way off to your next environment, where they'll tell you how to think, and they'll tell you what is right and tell you what is wrong, and they'll tell you there's only one answer, and it's in the back of the book, and don't look, and don't ask anybody for any questions or any help.
Well, many of those assembly lines, by the way, like in building a car, a lot of it's mechanized now, but for a long time you didn't need to know a whole bunch about building a car. You just stand there all day long and zip on those lug nuts.
Yeah, that was the assembly line process by Henry Ford. Mm-hmm. The idea was you could you, instead of needing 2 or 3 highly skilled people, you can hire 100 completely unskilled people and have them each do a separate stupid task and mass produce a product. And this is the same thing that we see today with the school system. This is why kids today are so stupid, but they think they're so smart. Because they go through a school system which tells them you're great and you're wonderful, you're perfect, you're great, you don't need to improve upon yourself, just be yourself, just be who you are, don't worry about any of the big questions in life. What's really important is you need to do what you want to do, no bad days, everything should be wonderful, chive on, what is that? Anyways, but that's what they teach the kids. And so the kids come out the other end after getting A's and B's, and they think they're really smart because their authority figures have deemed them to be intelligent. They're complete idiots. They're not qualified for anything. And they get degrees. Right, yeah, exactly. And they're qualified for something.
Freemasons or something.
Which is funny to me. I've talked to people before. I love psychology. It's one of my favorite fields. I read about it a lot. I listen to people talk about it. Jordan Peterson, for example, who's a psychologist from Canada. I listen to him often. I like psychology. It's a fun field. What's fascinating is how many people I've met in my life who have a degree in psychology who know nothing about it and will admit, I got the degree and now I just kind of use it to tell people I have a degree. Yeah, I don't even really use it. I just tell people I have it. I don't remember anything I learned, but I have the degree. Now, let me explain it like this, right? So if you go to college, like a junior college, you have 10 years from the first credits you earn to do something with those credits. And if you don't do anything with those credits after 10 years, they're not worth anything anymore. The idea is, you only can retain the information for so long, so if you took a history class 10 years ago, you need to take it again. Well, then explain to me, geniuses, please. How does a degree change? If you get a degree in psychology, is it still meaningful after 10 years? Because the same college that gave you that degree says that after 10 years, your credits aren't worth anything. By the same reasoning, your degree shouldn't be worth anything either.
It's all an illusion.
Exactly. It's all an illusion. It's all a lie. It's not true. It's not real. But it's been set up in such a way and sold to you in such a way as if to give you the impression that the system is working. But the system's not working. This is why there are so many millions of homeless Americans. This is why it bothers me when people say we need to import people for the jobs here in America. We have a slew of Americans. We've given up on them. Let's not give up on these Americans. Let's help our fellow Americans, and then maybe if there's jobs left over, we'll give them to foreigners. But until then, I want to help local American homeless people, give those people jobs. I don't want foreigners getting jobs that should be going to my American brothers, whom I have a history with, I have a shared culture with, and at the same time, we've spent billions of dollars helping these people in the form of education, in the form of housing, in the form of rehabilitation. What, are you going to give up on them and import other people so that they can have a job, so they can send that money back to their home country? It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. But that's a story for another time.